Rain is an interesting figure in gaming. Though she hasn't been in a new game in a long time, I feel like her legacy is somewhat overlooked. At this point, I feel like people viewed her more as a one-trick pony, a sexy vampire, and they are already wrong there, killing indiscriminately. They might be partially right, I guess. There is more to her, though. And over the span of 3 games she stars in, and 1 game she's unlockable, a film series, a comic book series, and even a feature film cameo that wasn't a complete dumpster fire. So there has to be more to her. Time we find out in this lesson in horror history. Vampires' popularity in today's culture seems to be waning again. It had a bit of a boom in the 2000s for a lot of reasons. Not just Twilight, thank God. There's a lot of weird misconceptions when it comes to the history of vampires and Dhamphirs. The concept of the vampire as an undead creature inflicting harm originated in Eastern Europe, specifically in Bulgaria, 1,000 years ago. Make no mistake, this was a legend isolated among Slavic people. It was not widespread or well known. Slavic vampires were non-corporeal, lacking a physical body, having more in common with a poltergeist. The vampire wrought havoc, often as a spreader of disease in a village. But the vampire did not create other vampires with its bite, and it didn't consume blood. This early vampire was no suave creature in evening dress. It was a ghost-like being that operated in the same arenas as destructive rats. Appearance-wise, this sounds a little closer to the vampires known as the Nosferatu in the Vampire the Masquerade game. Since the bloodsucker this video is about was in Playboy, this is clearly not the type we have here. Let's look a little further into some vampire lore. I feel like one of the more popular vampires is, of course, Sesame Street's Count Von Count. Alright, clearly Dracula, but the Count is up there. Just in case for some unknown reason you don't know the history of Dracula, popular fact was based on Vlad the Impaler, which apparently is debated now, which I was not aware of until I started researching this video. He got the name often because he executed people by having them impaled on large wooden spikes, but the more valid information for this was his dining habits. It was said that he often dined in the company of his victims as they died and would even dip his bread in their blood. Thank you, History Channel, for that information. The overall theme here is the history of ingesting blood, obviously. So technically, Rain is what is called a Dhamphir, the product of a vampire and a human. Apparently, the Balkans believed that male vampires would often sleep with women they were attracted to in life, and the offspring were half-breeds. They had a lot of different ideas of what these offspring would look like. Some thought they would have no bones, which sounds awful, or just they wouldn't be damaged by sunlight, or even have no interest in blood at all. We have a few popular ones in modern culture, such as Rain or even Blade from the Marvel Universe. Alright, we have set the stage. Now to talk about her origin story. Or stories in this case. BloodRayne has a timeline for the game and one for the Uwe Boll movies. No BloodRayne video would be complete without mentioning them at some point. Now, the intro video for the first game is really all we needed at the time. Not some big, long, drawn-out story, just a hot redhead killing things. I know, high school Adam was not exactly the deepest thinker.
Tell me again, why are we in a vampire ghetto after sunset?
Be patient. Wait. Watch.
Come on!
This is the one we've been watching.
We have no use for a vampire in our ranks. This is a waste of time.
Not vampire. Half vampire. Fewer weaknesses she must feed.
Picked a dangerous place to feed.
She's hunting, looking for her father.
The Brimstone
The
Society.
Brimstone Society needs her. We will extend the invitation. Time to go.
Where is he, bitch?
One thing it does do is set the tone. We get little bits of plot here and there, but the long-winded explanations are few and far between. After witnessing the butchering of some vampires, the Brimstone Society invites her to work for them. When we start the game, we jump forward to her first mission with the Society, and she is with her mentor, Mintz. We have no idea why Mintz is with the group, no background, but yet she's another Dhampir, meaning they are not as rare as I would have thought, but in this world, not much has to make sense. The point for them is they are there to investigate some mutated locals and find the cause. Let's quickly talk about the origin of the movie, because instead of talking about a badass, we get the exact opposite. I am fairly sure that 1. Uwe only wanted to make a period piece and had no interest in following the game's plot, and 2. His only frame of reference was Rain was that she was in Playboy, and that's it. In the film, she was a circus freak that really shows none of the things that makes Rain interesting as a character in the slightest. I mean, he even managed to make the sex scene unappealing. That's pretty hard to do. Now back to the game, since it's better than the movie in every way. To shorten it up, the whole town is mutated. Mintz gets eaten, as well as a few remaining people. Rain has to kill the Queen of the Underworld. Now this is where the plot of the game takes a bit more form. The Queen has a rib from the god Beliar embedded in her. Now Rain kills her and the rib gets impaled into her, only to get ripped back out by a guy by the name of Jürgen Wolf, the leader of the Gegengeist group, a Nazi faction researching the occult, and is our main antagonist. Rain bounces from country to country at this point going forward, killing Nazis and stopping them from collecting more pieces of Beliar. She obtains the eye in Argentina, ends up in the Gegengeist group's base, only to have another vampire resurrect Beliar anyways, using the heart, which she defeats. We end the game learning that the father of Rain has been found by Brimstone, which was her personal goal the whole time. Kind of anticlimactic, in my opinion. You would think they would pick this back up in the next game, right where this one ended, and you would be absolutely wrong. Instead, the game takes place 66 years later. No more Nazis, and somehow after 66 years, Kagan is still alive. Now this is where we first get some insight into the history of Rain. After the death of her mother, she was taken in by Sir Tremaine. Raised her, but in the end was attacked and killed by Kagan. Sensing a theme. Such a deep backstory, I know. The rest of the game, Rain is looking to avenge her mother and Tremaine, while looking to kill Kagan and the rest of her Dhampir siblings. Now, since this video is about Rain and not her bloodline, maybe we'll do that in the future. We're just going to kind of gloss over this quickly. And I'll do my best to pronounce these because, oh. There's Ephemera, Feral, Xerx Mephistopheles, Daryl Zarensky, Unraveler, Delinda, Kestrel, Moral, Svetlana. From the game Nocturne, it's hinted there may be a connection, so just in case I'm adding this, since a lot of the community believes this fact. Dimitri, Garrick, and Sleaze. We kill a bunch of siblings, fighting our way to Kagan only when we win, we kind of see Rain get screwed over. The Brimstone Society has gone underground, once it looked like the vampires were about to take over the world, and basically has declared war on anything vampiric, like Rain and her partner, Severn, who I don't care enough about to talk about prior to the video. This would have been an amazing setting for a third game in the series, and we can see what Rain would be like in charge of a vampire empire. Now, we don't get that game. But we do get one more Blood Rain game. Betrayal was not the best reviewed, and it seems like a lot of people don't really consider it part of the series for a few reasons. The biggest reason is there seems to be no connections to the rest of the games. It could have been called anything else, and I don't think people would have noticed in the slightest. There are a bunch of other games, like the PSP game that was supposedly to take place after the second, but it was cancelled. A DS game called The Shroud was cancelled apparently because of the poor sales of Betrayal. Rain has managed a few cameos over the years. I pointed out before that she was in Playboy, which I definitely can't show here. She was a playable character in a game called Infected, though none of her close combat moves can be used, so it's a bit of a bummer. Also, she can be seen in Ready Player One for a moment. Not a massive cameo, but it's something. Going to end this with a sour note. The movies are some of the worst game tie-ins I have ever seen. Now as I'm writing this, I'm watching them in the background because I feel like it's the only way I can stomach them. The first movie takes all the toughness out of the character and makes her more of a turn-off than a turn-on. The second movie is her in the Wild West, which is something the game's never touched on, thank God. It is until the third movie where she fights against Nazis, but none of these are worth watching at all. Please, for the love of God, stay away from these at all cost.